currently in Miami, Florida for my birthday, which was yesterday. And I'm 18 now, and so I started reflecting on my past, my early teenage years, my introduction to self-improvement and all that. And I started to think back, to my younger teens when I was 12, 13, 14. And I remember just really not liking myself. I was like a fat kid. I had like a couple friends. I was like a loser, right? Like however you would imagine a middle school loser, that was me. And so I would I'd talk to myself really negatively. I'd say things to myself like, "Oh, you're too ugly. Like you're not worth involving yourself with these other kids." Like for example, I remember wanting to go play football outside during recess with the other kids, and I didn't know anyone like there, so I was kind of hesitant to go talk to them, and I really wanted to go play, but there was just something inside of me that was like, "You're not enough. They wouldn't like you. Like, who are you? Who are you to go over to talk to those cool kids? They weren't even cool kids, bro. Fucking middle school. Everyone's just, you know, it was ridiculous, but that's the way I thought." And also, there's another one. I remember I remember this vividly too. It was 6th grade, and there's this girl in my class who I thought was pretty, and I had a crush on her. Or I was developing a crush on her. And as I was thinking about her, just like, daydreaming, there was a voice in my mind that told me, "You are too fat to have a crush on a girl." And I was like, and I'm thinking about it now, and it's funny, right? It's kind of funny, like, oh shit. But if you really think about it, it's really fucked, bro. Like, it's really upsetting that that a young kid, like the 12-year-olds you should just be living your life, bro. You're 12, bro. Like, you should have no thought in your mind, just living authentically as a kid. But it was so sad that I, even in that young age, was already just like, "Oh, you're not good enough. You're not enough." Like, that's some shit you would probably start doing when you're older. But even by then, and that was just like a thing in my mind. Like, that was just a constant theme where I would basically live my whole life as if that was just it. I wasn't enough. I wasn't, I just was a loser in my own mind. I sucked. So I basically carry this on, and then it also kind of matched with my want for a average life. I just imagine myself living, like, doing okay in school, going to an office job, having a midlife crisis, having like a wife, a couple kids, retiring at 60. It's crazy, but that's what I wanted for my life, right? And I'm not hating on that or saying that that's wrong. By all means, it's still a life choice, and that's still something. If you want to do that, then that's completely up to you. And if you want that, and that's going to make you happy, then by all means. But looking at it now, and what I want for my life now, is just polar opposite, like completely different. And but yeah, that's just how I was at that age. And then just before I turned 16, I found self-improvement. I found like that you can become better, that it's not just, well, this is it, like you can develop yourself mentally, physically. And later I learned that you can also develop yourself spiritually, emotionally. But at first it was those two, though, like the mental and physical, especially the physical, because I got into the gym. I started making some progress, right? And I started getting into my head. And I started to get a bit of an ego, right? And ego is just thrown around nowadays, There's obviously a difference between ego and confidence. But a lot of people confuse confidence nowadays with ego, because so many people just don't have any confidence. So when you see a confident person, you assume egotistical person, which is not true. So at first I was gaining confidence. That confidence eventually I became egotistical. But I needed some of that to get me out of the rut that was my life. That rut that was me hating myself and, not being proud of the person I was. So I needed a bit of that kind of entitlement to basically jumpstart my improvement. And so I'm going about my journey, lifting, reading, like just kind of like going through the whole self-improvement thing, like meditating, journaling, all that. But then it gets to a point where I start to lose myself in like the newfound attention I got. So I was, I'd never been an ugly guy, right? And as soon as I started losing the weight and started hitting the gym, starting to get a little bit of shape on me, I would start to attract girls, right? And I let this kind of like fuel my ego, and I became kind of a dick, to be honest. I became not such a likable person. I treated the girls I was talking to like whatever, like just like a toy. And they weren't even bad girls, if they were just like hoes, and it's like, okay, but even then, but these girls weren't hoes, like they were nice girls, and yeah, like I'd let it get to my head, I was top of the world, it was like everything revolved around me. And then I started treating my family wrong, especially my mom, who's the one I was closest to, which looking back is like one of the things I regret the most, is just how I treated her at some points, So I let my ego spill over, and then it was too much, and it was a bad thing, right? But the message I'm trying to get out here is that you need a little bit of that, depending on where you're from. Like for me, I needed that because I was so down in the dumps in terms of like my self-image, that I needed a boost like that. So I leaned into it, and it helped a lot, right? And then whenever I try to stop and I'm like, okay, wait, usually when it did happen and I'd go overboard and I'd do too much, something would happen in my life to basically crush my ego, and I basically just start from zero. So what happened originally was that I started liking this girl a lot. Meanwhile, I was still like, talking to the other girls, but then I started falling in love with this girl, and then she was kind of playing me. Like it was like on or off. And so it was like this roller coaster of emotions for me. And eventually I was like, all right, it's enough. Like, I need to know, like, is this gonna beat anything or not? And she tells me no. And I'm crushed, right? Because I was really liking this girl. And it hit my ego, because it was like, well, I thought it was the shit, but this girl obviously doesn't think so. So maybe I'm not the shit, which obviously isn't a great way to think, but I was younger then and wasn't as again, learning about spirituality and how to develop your emotions as well, your emotional intelligence, was something that helped me out a lot when I faced a similar situation not too long ago. But that hurt my ego, and so I was crushed, and then I lost a lot of motivation. I didn't train properly in the gym for almost a year after that. I'd go in once or twice a month, but I didn't really start training until the beginning of this year again. So that was like half a year of just basically not training in the gym, and that was my thing. And so as you can imagine, I was like pretty upset in that period of time. But earlier this year, I found my the fire again, and I guess that fire is kind of like your ego. I don't know if like ego is the right word to use, but that's the word that you can understand, so that's what I'm going to use. It's like my ego started to go up again, right? So typically the word ego has a negative connotation attached to it. When you hear it, someone's like, oh, that person's ego's too high. But ego really just means like a person's sense of self-importance, self-esteem. So it's almost like you have to reclaim that word. We have to reclaim that word, because it's something that you need to grow. If you're in a situation like me, or if you're in that situation right now, or you're just getting out of it, you need to be ready to basically grow that ego, and who cares what people say, honestly? Like, who gives a fuck what they're telling you? It's like, oh, your ego's too high. Like, oh, who cares, bro? Are they helping you grow in your life? Are they helping you make progress in the gym, find ways to make money, free your family from cycles of trauma and just poverty? Like, no, like, they're not helping you. They're not going to be there in the next 5 years, probably. So who cares, honestly? And if it's family, sometimes even family, bro, you just gotta like say, fuck it, you know? This is about you. This is about your life, bro. And if you're not ready to face those arguments, those conflicts, if you don't want to, then this path isn't for you. But if you're watching this, it likely is. You know, if you relate to my story, then it's just part of the trials and tribulations you have to face to become a greater man. And yeah, sometimes it's gonna feel like a little inauthentic. Sometimes it's gonna feel like you're trying to fake it till you make it. But the thing is with fake it till you make it is that you're not faking it. You're working every day towards this goal. Like you're putting in the work, you know, even if it's one thing, you know, 1 minute of meditation, one push-up, one journal entry, just one thing. As long as you're doing something, you're working towards your goals. So you're not faking it, but it's like the mindset you need to adopt. Like you have to say, oh, I'm there, you know, I'm going there, I'm there. Like I'm the shit, you know, like I'm that guy who can do those things because you're doing those things, right? You basically have to tell yourself that you are the man because you are. The problem with fake it till you make it is that some people just genuinely fake it until they don't make it. They never make it because they're faking it. They're not actually doing anything. And so they pretend they're the shit. And eventually they get a reality check. And they're like, oh shit, I'm nothing. Well, no shit, you're not doing anything. Of course you're not anywhere. You were lying to yourself. That's called fucking delusion. What you want to do is have conviction in yourself, conviction in your abilities to become a greater man because you're putting in the work every day, you know? I tell myself, because right now in my life, I'm trying to become more athletic. I want to be an athlete, you know, a hybrid athlete. I want to be good at, you know, the gym, but also cardio and stuff like that. And so I tell myself, like, I'm an athlete. I confirm myself in my mind. I affirm it, you know, but I'm also putting in the work. I'm also running, you know, I'm also, you know, jogging. I'm also working out 5 times a week. Like I'm actually doing the things that it takes to become an athlete, right? And then I have proofs, you know, I improved my mile time by 2 minutes in like 3 months, right? I go from a 8:58 minute mile, which is not good, to like a 6:50 mile time, which is pretty good, you know? I'm putting in the work. So I know when I tell myself I'm an athlete, because I am an athlete, because I'm doing the things that an athlete does. You know, I get my bench up. I'm an athlete. So it's confirming those things to yourself, but also putting in the work. And that's how you fake it till you make it and grow your ego, your self-confidence, your self-worth. Don't ever let someone tell you, oh, your ego's too high. Unless it's a person who genuinely cares about you and who's smart and genuinely understands and can tell that your ego's too high, that you're doing too much, that you're being a dick. Because sometimes you can go overboard, you can be a dickhead, you can be mean to people when it's just not necessary. You know, the best men out there are confident, but they're humble. They accept when they're wrong and accept other people's ideas. You know, they can disagree, but they don't have to be assholes to make a point or to disagree with someone. So always keep that in mind as you're growing and as your ego gets higher. Make sure to always tame it at a certain level. You want it to grow because you need it to fuel that fire, but eventually you're going to notice yourself being a little too mean, and just, you know, especially to the people you care about. And at that point it's like, all right, cool down. But yeah, I hope this advice finds you well, and don't forget to smile. Peace.